Welcome to Green Carpet Interviews. Let's get into the show.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Green Carpet Interviews, the show where we talk about sustainable living, veganism, and really cool topics about the earth and the environment. Especially today on this podcast, we have some pretty cool people. Vast Harvest, which is a mother and son duo, which is Andrea and James. They're right out of Australia, actually. So this is gonna be a pretty interesting episode today because they are actually they're farmers, and they're really going for homesteading and self-sufficiency. And it's going to be kind of cool to pick their brains about how to keep plants alive, because I literally don't know how to do that. So I am, I'm a horrible plant dad. All of my babies have died except for one who just refuses to die, and it's a snake plant. So, hopefully they can school us on how to actually keep plants alive. Not only that, but be sustainable and self-sufficient, which is probably more important, So,
Nice.
how are you doing today?
Doing good.
Fingers better?
Yeah, a little bit better. It's a little bit swollen, but
Yeah.
But it's healing.
Yeah.
I need to probably do another check on it just to make sure.
Yeah.
But it's been a busy weekend, and so I just running around, and So no, but this is good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
So they're farmers. That's amazing. That's so great. Yeah.
All right. So without further ado, let's bring them in here. Andrea and James. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hello. Good morning or afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah. It's both morning and afternoon for the both of us. Yeah. So welcome onto the podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here. For those people who don't know who you are, do you mind explaining?
Yeah, well, I'm James, and this is my mum, Andrea, and we have 400 acres in Australia, the mid-north coast. And on that property, we have a 25-acre permaculture setup with food forests that which is basically a food forest is an ecosystem that creates a whole bunch of all these different trees that grow up like a normal forest but produce fruit. So
nice.
Yeah, we've been doing that for a while now.
4 years nearly.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, we're going in We're going in our 4th year now.
Wow, that's amazing. What sort of made you want to start this venture, especially together, which is
well, it's all of our family that have been doing this, and I guess we've been here for so long, and this property was a development property. We're looking, to do stuff with. We have the land, so we originally had some bees, and we're like, well, what's best to go with bees is fruit trees and that. And when I was real young, I wanted I remember all the time going for bushwalks. I wanted trees all around the fruit the property, so I could just not bring food with me and just eat on the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it sort of expanded from that idea to Dad going, let's build a couple of swales in this permaculture system, which is a sustainable version of agriculture, because practices now aren't very sustainable. But this basically boosts the microbes in the soil and creates a whole entire ecosystem and forest that works well with nature and not against it.
Nice. For those people who don't know what a permaculture is, all those other people, not me. No, but I'm just kidding. Do you mind explaining?
Yeah, so permaculture is a permanent sustainable version of agriculture, which basically integrates more aspects into just commercially farm. So a lot of fields, that's where you get your commercial vegetables and that from, but this
they're monoculture
yeah
as well.
monocultural, but this is basically a more complicated system that runs on R1 runs on a swale system down a hill. So it's about 3 kilometers of these swales, which are mounds, and they are all on contour where they fill up with water, hold water, then fill into a dam. And there's just all different varieties of trees. We have almost 1,000 different varieties of vegetables and fruits in the food forest. And they will grow up into different levels. You've got your shrub and herbaceous level, your sub canopy, your main canopy, and it's an exact replica of a proper ecosystem, just recreated with fruit trees. And it actually creates its own humidity and stuff like that, and
wow,
own bio almost.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's a permanent food forest. So permaculture is like permanent agriculture.
And it looks after itself. So the goal is you put as much effort as you need to put in the first 5 to 10 years. And, you know, if you keep on expanding, sometimes only 2 years, depends how big you do it. But after that 4-year mark of it resting, then you're going to start getting your fruit come through, and it sort of takes after itself. And the goal is to feed the animals, well, an amount of fruit to feed the animals, feed the microbes, and whatever's left behind feeds us and the local community.
Yep.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
What sort of resources do you need in order to like get something like this started?
Well, a lot of people will say you need land, but I've seen a lot of people bring permaculture into a small backyard, and they sustainably do it, and they can feed their family off it. So it depends on the scale you're doing it at. If it's a small scale, you can be out there with a little excavator or a shovel and really just be digging up these mounds. And
once it's set up,
it looks after itself.
It looks after itself. So it's really only a one-off. So when we first started the permaculture, the swales, we paid for somebody to come in, and we went massive. We went big scale. Generally, people will start 3 or 4 little swales in their backyard if they've got a slight hill. But they'll either dig it out by hand or bring in a small machine. The initial cost is trying to dig that
depending on how big it is, and it all depends on what you're doing. We decided to go for very large swales where we could build like a little forest on the swales. And some people just do very small swales close to each other so they can do rows of trees. And we integrate an ABC system into that, where no trees are really next to each other that are the same variety. They're spread out all through the forest. Wow. So, and in different areas, so you got more tropicals this end and less tropicals this end. So it's a pretty complicated system when it comes to it. But we've started. We did have people here to start building the food forest when we started off, but then we have taken over, and we just did everything from there. Because when we came into this, we had really not much clue on what we're doing. We just but now, it's been a while, and a lot of time, so it's paid off.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really cool.
So who convinced who?
Actually, it was as James said, it was really him that put the idea into our head, and he said, "Oh, we should put some food around the place." And we just thought citrus trees, and you pick an orange and a mandarin or something like that. A couple of nuts.
God just took it from there. I reckon he just said, keep on building, and we just kept on building.
So my husband, actually, Andrew, he's the one that said, "Okay, we're going to do this. This is in this area." And I went, "Okay." And it was only going to be like 3 or 4 swales, and then it went to 7, and now we're at 14.
And then the whole
how many now?
19 swales.
Wow.
Plus an orchard as well. So,
and how big? So a swale is it basically a pocket within the ground that sort of holds moisture, or
so imagine a drain system going down the side of a street, and how it's mounted sort of on one side, and you got the groove where the water flows. It's basically that system, but when you follow a contour of a hill, you can capture that water to a certain level, and then once it hits that level in that mound, it flows down into the next mound where it does the same thing, and then it follows all the way down to every single swale until they're full, and then goes into the dam. So when we get a drought, the water will hold in the swales and prolong that soaking period. So
have you seen contour banks on the side of hills that slow the water down? Like generally here in Australia, I've seen them as a child, and you'll drive along, and out in the middle of nowhere, there's these little mounds, and they're just like contour banks. So it basically slows the water down, but it feeds it back into those mounds.
And also stops us from needing to water. The first year we did this, we did it in a drought. We did need to water every single tree because there was not one drop of rain. That was just, it literally took 4 or 5 of us a whole entire day to water the food forest. We had to do that twice a week, but it's now a self-watering system, really. We've put water crystals, polymers into the ground, which biodegrade into a neutral fertilizer after 8 years, and that gives it all a boost. So these water crystals absorb the water, the roots grow through, and when they don't get water, they start drawing off these crystals.
Wow. Now also the swells have to be built along a slope, I take it, that way they can overflow into the next swell as they go down.
And rule of thumb is nothing past 16 degrees is really where people call it quits. No more swale than that. We do have a couple of swales on the ends that are at 18 degrees, and we've had where the water's rushing down from one swale and it just takes out the wall.
I see.
Interesting.
Right. Now also when you do the planting, do you because I imagine that some trees actually suck up more moisture or more water than others. How do you plan that, especially if it's going to be a permanent fixture into the ground? How do you set that up to make sure that you don't have those problems?
So we use we dug holes previously because we have really bad soil here. We have Dalsana. It's basically volcanic ash with no nutrients in it. So it was and we're using this as an example as well, because we can bring this to other foreign countries around the world that have the same soil and can't grow in it. It's barren soil, and we're bringing it back to life basically. So what we did was we ended up drilling little pockets for each tree and filled them up with a bit of extra dirt to help them take root, and then that would spread out, and we've just kept a slow pace.
Sometimes it's a little bit difficult because, like you said, some trees need more watering and some don't,
and some need to be lifted up.
And we've lost a lot of trees because we're only learning right at the beginning when we planted 1,000 trees in there, and when you mix them all up, you can't give them all that special. The only thing that was special and different was we created one swale that was literally just the blueberries and just citrus, because we know that they need different types of fertilizers. But the rest of them, we haven't gone to the point where, okay, you need more water, so we're going to put you differently.
The only way we look at that is really, when it comes to it, is the drainage. So if it's something that is too, most of the time, the right-hand side of the food forest is a lot more wet and humid. So if something's not going well over there, we can move it over to the other side of the food forest, or we can put a new substrate in the ground we've mixed in with some sand and rock to help that drain out. With the avocados, you normally lift those up so they don't end up flooding as well. So there's little things that do make a difference.
We've learned a lot over the 4 years. Some things just don't like it in the food forest at all. So
it's always when they're young, but once they're established, they just take off.
I see. What's been the hardest to grow in the food forest?
Avocados.
Avocados,
really?
Yep. Wow. Pretty much, I think there's one alive in there, and we put a lot in there.
No, there's a lot more than one alive in there, but there's just they just don't struggle.
They're not growing at all.
Yeah.
We also have the problem with originally we have and we still do have a lot of eucalyptus trees in our food forest. The person that originally advised us told us, oh, keep them in, they won't do anything. But we worked out after a couple of years that nothing was growing under the eucalyptus trees.
Not even weeds.
Not even weeds, because the rain would touch the leaves and take the eucalyptus right in the ground, and also some of the turpentines and that send it directly under the ground, the poison, and just keep that area protected. So you can't grow a lot of fruits under them. But what we've done is we've knocked some of those trees out, but we've also put natives in under the other ones. So we have native fruits that can grow under these other trees, eucalyptus trees.
Lessons are learned.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mistakes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now also, and on the avocado, because I know, for example, like in Hawaii, they have different species of avocados, different types. But I think might be several decades ago, whoever started doing avocados in the United States, for example, growing avocados, wanted to have some monopoly of sorts. And so they came up with some law that they could not import any other avocados that's different from the one that's a couple or so that's been grown in US into US. That way they could have monopoly on that. So you have a lot of different avocados in Hawaii. So do you guys have different avocados, and do some do better than others?
Yeah, so we got a fair bit of different varieties of avocados. Still have some at the shed that haven't been planted, but these they have different roots. Some of them have the same root stock, and they're different avocado trees. So if it's a root stock that's failing in this soil, then that's something we've got to go and look at. And then once we find a root stock that's suitable, we can go and put different varieties of avocados. But I say we've had about 7 different varieties of avocado. And that's the same with our mangoes. We've got about 13 varieties of mango and about 7 varieties of banana. And there's just the wackiest fruit, because we only eat very small amounts of what is actually out there when it comes to fruit. We've got red bananas called the red dakas that have a strawberry and raspberry flavor to them. And it's just, it's bizarre.
We try and grow a bit of everything
Yeah.
that's not in the shops, but there are still things like the mangoes and avocados and things like that we really do want, that we love, but want to be able to grow that as well, just to try and be self-sufficient.
And so with all the growing, do you guys ever? I would imagine there would be a few things that you would go to the shop to buy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but on a scale, in comparatively, do you have more of your produce and everything that you take from your garden than you go out to buy? And what is the ratio of things that you actually buy?
I'll answer this one. I'm the one that does all the gardening side of things. James is more on the food forest, but we eat to the season. So the trees are not so much producing the abundance of fruit. So we still buy fruit from the shops because we're not getting enough on the property. But in regards to the vegetables and that sort of stuff being self-sufficient, we eat to the season. So if it's cauliflower or broccoli season, then we will try and grow it. Although we've had an issue this year, but whatever's growing in season, that's what we're eating. But so we try not to buy anything.
There is a lot of fruits we don't buy, like bananas and stuff like that, because we've got plenty of them. The food forest, but the problem we're facing now is it's coming on to that 4-year mark where everything's starting to fruit, but we're going to lose all the bees to pollinate it. So we have a 25-acre useless food forest, technically.
Wow.
Technically, I mean, the vegetables won't need the pollinators.
Very rare. It's almost 90% of all imported crops need pollinators. So it's one of those things where it's you might get your bananas, but you won't really get a lot of your other vegetables. You won't get your pumpkins that are going to grow right. Zucchinis. It's really going to be hell because they've just killed all the bees and the natives, poisoned them.
Wow. Wait, do you mind explaining or like digging a little further into that? Like what's been going on there?
So we've just had about 15 months, 14 months ago, we had an incursion of Varroa mite in Australia. And from there, it's spread out to about 200 cases, and they're just creating these zones, and they've killed over 30,000 bees so far. And they're creating these zones, and they're following these zones outwards of the original spot and just killing every single bee in the area. Then they're using fipronil baiting stations to poison all of the European bees in the red zones on New South Wales. And then this is an illegal chemical that almost every country use. They used it once in Queensland, wiped out the green carpenter bee up there, the native species. They're putting 800 baiting stations out 2 kilometers north, east, south, and west of each other. And that will then kill all of the European bees, poison their hives for up to 2 years. The feral left behind hives where natives will come and raid and then kill the native hives. And from that point on, it's just mayhem, because we have, you got this toxin leaking into waterways. You got it on the ground, earthworms. You've got this everywhere, this banned substance, and we've got no pollinators.
The birds are eating the dead bees that have been poisoned. The bandicoots, little kangaroo things.
Yeah.
The natives are eating these poison bees as well.
And,
but just rewind back. When he said they, he means our government and the Department of Primary Industries.
Okay.
Who are looking.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And every country lives with this mite, and Europe, 160 varieties of native bee do not get affected by the mite, but they will all be poisoned because of this mite that every single country lives with.
Right.
But they refuse to go into a management plan, even though they're way past that point of ever stopping this.
So do you mind explaining the mite?
So a Varroa mite, almost every single country lives with. It's basically a flea for a bee, and it sucks their blood out and their plasma, and that's how they survive. But there's plenty of treatments out there, and it's one of those bugs that take about 2 years to destroy a hive untreated. While we already have a hive beetle here that only takes a week to destroy a hive untreated. We never went around and killed every single hive in New South Wales and Australia to treat that. But with this, it seems like it's more of a targeted act, and it's, trying to wipe out all the self-sufficient people and all the small farms along the Central Coast, because this is the most populated area of bees. And this goes into America as well, because America get a lot of their bees from Australia. So does Canada. There's a lot of seasons when they need it. And the crazy thing is, it's the 20% of this DPI or this whole entire thing is funded by the big farms, the almond farms, the avocado farms. So the blueberries, 16 companies are paying 20% to kill our bees, and then on top of that, they're getting paid for lack of pollination.
Like a subsidy?
Basically, and they're just it's almost ridiculous when it comes to it, because they're paying for it, but they're also getting the money back, and no one else is getting the money, and no one wants to speak out, because the money the government owe the people for the bees that they killed, they won't get. They're just hanging above their head. As if you want to talk out, you're probably not going to see that for a while.
A lot of the commercial beekeepers won't speak up about what's actually happening with the bees at the moment, for the fear that the DPI won't renew their bee licenses or their registrations, and yet they won't be able to have any bees. So in Australia, you have to have your bees registered. That's
are there any organizations where people are coming together, especially small farmers like you guys, coming together and trying to really talk to different governments throughout the world, to say, because in a sense, they're making it hard for families to be able to have their own farms. Because whatever they do is encroaching on whatever is happening, on your land.
That they break all the rules, and they trespass into your property. If you don't comply with their orders, they issue you with a $1.2 million fine each for each person that mucks with them. You can't open the bees, or they'll issue with a fine. If you want to lock the gates, they'll cut through your gates and take your bees.
But there isn't an organisation. There's no group that supports any of that. There is a honey organisation. It's called ARBIC, Australian Honey whatever it is, but they're actually on the same side with the Department of Primary Industry. So what everyone wants to hear is they want no bees to have Varroa mite, and they don't, because if they do, they'll have to treat them with, they think, a chemical substance, and then they'll have tainted honey, and nobody wants
but there's a
pay
lot
money.
of different methods of treating Varroa mite, just like there is for hive beetle. And they just decided to kill the bees instead of looking into a treatment method. And they don't test these bees. Our bees were completely clean. We tested them, so they do not care if they have the Varroa mite or not. As long as you're in that, they find one 10 kilometers away, they're going to kill your bees in a radius around that. So
I see.
the almond farms and that, if they have one Varroa mite in their 80,000 hives in their field, they only take that one hive away. So they also get a free pass when it comes to it.
Wow.
I see.
Wow.
I see. So I guess I'm putting it together more now. So when a viral mite,
A Varroa mite.
Varroa mite. Okay, so that's good. So when a Varroa mite gets into any sort of farm that is not one of the sort of the protected farms, then everything around it gets destroyed.
Yeah, but
whether it's not.
They're just connecting the dots at this point, because they're chasing their tail, because they're like putting one dot here, and then they're just filling up everything and destroying everything. And all that's determined is if your bee is on this side of the line or this side of the line, it's going to be killed or not killed, which makes no sense. But on top of that, we question their biosecurity act with the sticky mats they were using, and the testing methods. And they put us literally in the red zone 15 minutes later, and they said that there was a case out 8 Ks that way or 6 Ks that way in the middle of the bush. And we know no one else had bees out there. The only other person with bees did not have Varroa mite and weren't the positive case. So where was the positive case? Because they won't expose it. We had a 2.5 hour meeting trying to get everything out of them, going, because everyone wants the questions on what's going on, and they just fling them off. They say, you're not allowed to know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is absolutely crazy.
And so so I guess what happens, so now you've got all of your bees been killed now?
Yeah, okay. They poured 150 milliliters of petrol into each one of those hives.
Oh, so they came in and they just do it. Right.
Yeah,
I see what you mean. Right. And so how long does it take for your bees to come back, or, for a new queen to be established and all that? Like,
it's going to be about 3 years from the last case of Varroa mite, which is ridiculous. And then on top of that, I know the side effects of all the poison that's left in the bush and everything else. So
the rule is that, you can't have bees for 3 years. For every time they have a new detection, that timer starts again. So the guys that were first in Newcastle area 12 months ago, or at least they're looking at 4 years now, because it's still 12 months down the track. We're still finding mites all over the place.
But
so years before we can have bees here.
A bloke had to shut his farm down in Newcastle after 80 years, a pumpkin farm, because he's growing in Maitland, because he's growing mutant pumpkins because they're not pollinating right. Only one's getting pollinated from maybe wind or a beetle or something, and left with mutant pumpkins that no one wants.
Wow.
And they're woody and stuff like that. And that's the problem when it comes to it, is even they go, well, you have self-pollinating fruit. Well, a lot of your self-pollinating fruit, even raspberries will create fruit, but it'll be crumbly and inedible without actual proper pollination.
Oh, I
Got
see.
Yeah.
Wow. So it seems to me like clearly you guys love what you do. Otherwise, you'll be discouraged. Because it sounds like there's stumbling blocks being put in the path of ordinary people just wanting to have some permanent agricultural of food forest on their own properties. And is there anything? What is the motivation for you guys? And do you teach other people how to do this, or do people come to you? to find out how they can have permaculture, on their own property? How do you do anything like that?
We're planning to open up the a tour for the food forest soon, and we can bring people through and show them and explain more and how they can do the system themselves.
We do want
But
to
at the
do
same time, we do
classes.
have a fair bit of people that do come around, our friends and people that are really interested and want to know more. And we're always up for it. We have, if we have time, we tell them come along, we'll work it out, because everyone doing this and working together is what we need. And when it comes to it, we need a community that stands together and feeds each other and has an abundant amount of fruit and food, and also can stand up for something like the bees, where they're the only reason humans live. If we don't have bees, we're not going to live, we're not going to eat. So everyone needs to stand up against that and stand up and go, we need.
Yep. So back to the question. Yeah, we do plan on doing classes here at some point, but we're not established enough yet. We would like to do small classes and show people how they can do the permaculture and gardening and that whole system in their backyard on a small scale, but on a big scale as well. But we also want to do a whole bunch of other classes that we've planned out for the future as well.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And I know you guys have learned a lot of things in this time period, right? What do you feel like is your, like, one of your biggest lessons, or like one of your biggest lessons you feel like you've learned from this whole process?
Or maybe not planning a drought. But that would
not doing what?
In a drought when we
I see. Yeah.
Not rain for months and months. There's bushfires everywhere.
That was
hard.
hard.
Right.
Yeah, it was just terrible.
Was it? When did you guys start? You guys started in 2019. Is that when it was?
Yeah, May 2000.
Yeah.
So,
and then the very next year,
right?
Right?
Before the COVID hit, and then was growing our own food, or trying to grow our own food. Yeah, who would have thought?
Wow, that's awesome.
That's crazy. Yeah. So, another thing too, I was curious, because it's a, it's cool to have a family sort of run business, and or just this really big project that you guys are putting on. Are there, I guess, sort of, what are some of the unique advantages you found, like, working together, on the farm?
Yeah, there's a fair bit. I mean, it's been four of us
for
most of, it's been four of us for most of this, and it's just been heads down and work. And right at the start, it was definitely a hard thing to put together and work together as a family, being I was young, just left school and stuff like that. Drew was my little brother, still very young, and it was really, really hard work. But over time, you all learn to work together, and it becomes a lot more pleasant and a lot more happy. And we've come to that point where we're working and we're really happy with it. It's hard, but it's
not as hard as what it was 4 years ago. Let's just say that. The boys were obviously young, and they were not, they were going to school. They did activities at school, but this is hard work. There's a lot of physical work. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and a lot of tears from the boys.
Even you guys. Everyone was
there at some point.
But it was very, very, very straining on us. And there's a lot of effort and a lot of heart that go into something like this. So it's and it's not just for us, it's for the community, it's for everyone. And that's how I plan it to be, is expand and
for their family as well. As these guys get married and have families and kids, then we want to be able to bring the children through the food forest and let them just feast.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They're content.
It really is
any other way. Even though it was hard. Yes, the first couple of years was very hard, but 4 years down the track, we're all we've all got our jobs, we all got machines, we all can go out and do separate jobs, but we can all come still together and do job together.
That's awesome too, because it's a rare thing to actually have families work together in this way. Um, it's there's a level of being self-sustained,
Yeah.
in this way, and it's an envious and very enviable position that you guys are in, because I'm sure so many people would want to just be able to be sustained by themselves and do what they're doing, and you have your whole family together. What are some of the greatest benefits of doing this for you guys as a family?
When for us, for me
Yes.
personally,
Yeah.
is when we have a plate on at dinner table and it's 100% from the farm.
Wow.
So whether it's pig or pork or vegetables,
Fruit
fruit.
sometimes.
Last
I'll do
year
fruit
we were
salad.
picking a whole bunch of peaches, so it was peach cobbler for dessert and that sort of stuff. So when you start feeding yourself off the farm,
it feels good. It feels like it's energizing, and it's like, this is worth it when you actually have something that's paying off. It's see the start of it all, and it's going to bloom into something beautiful.
So
Hopefully.
your vegetables are only alive for 10 minutes. Pull them out of the garden. So pulling something fresh out of the garden and eating it, or snapping off an asparagus and just eating it raw. Most of the time we eat a lot of our stuff, raw, as we snack through the gardens and the food forest, because it just tastes so different. I would never think of buying a bunch of asparagus from Woolworths or our supermarket and eating it raw. You just wouldn't. It just doesn't taste the same. So yeah, just knowing that you're fueling your body with something that's still alive.
Stuff that doesn't have chemicals in it or processed stuff, because what we call it, we don't go and get the organic certified because we want to go through all the money and that they want from us, but
they still got chemicals on them.
Yeah, and the organic fruits still have chemicals on them, but we are beyond organic, where it's like nothing at all from it's 100% us trying to feed the microbes by, if it's layering wood chip and turkey poo on there, and the microbes feeding the plants, and then the fruit falling off the plants. Nice. Where we can feed repeat that cycle, basically.
Yeah. That's really crazy. That's great.
That's fascinating. It's also interesting because clearly being able to, for sure that you're eating this clean food, right? Yeah. And do you guys have any memories, or looking at the way you eat now compared to before you actually started the permaculture?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any you remember the way your body reacted to the foods and the way your body reacts now to the food?
Yeah, I used to be
when we were in a different town, before we bought this place, before we even thought about growing our food, most of our food was out of a box. So frozen lasagna, frozen chicken Kiev, frozen pizza, even frozen vegetables. Everything was just dead. It was no life in it. So yeah, knowing that what we ate even 5 years ago, before we started our own food forest, was different. Then James, go on, tell them how much you used to weigh.
I used to weigh 110 kilos, about just getting on a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I lost 40 kilos in about 5-6 months. But it's just when you clear your mind and you have that chance to eat healthy, you really want to take it to the next level and live healthy. No kid should be fat in my eyes now, because it's like, it's such a simple process to go through, and it's all about your mentality. And I think a lot of the box food and stuff is blocking people's brains when it comes to eating healthy, as people to thrive.
Right. And just as a clarification for the audience, 110 kilos is 242 pounds. So just because there's
I was very, very big.
Because we're still we've not moved much here. We're not in the metric system. We still do inches and pounds. Yes.
Right. I do have a question. So so where do you see Vast Harvest sort of evolving to in the future?
Well, I eventually see it as a almost like a natural palace where it's just food forests, and I plan to build a lead area for the rest of the world to almost follow, where
Hmm.
they can integrate this in other parts of the world where they need to eat, and on top of that it can also be used. I have plans to build food forests and try and put houses in them and show people
Wow.
that you can live together in communities, but in food forests. So you're close, but you're far enough away, and everyone can eat and create a whole new community. Basically,
Here's
I have very big plans for this area and very, very big plans for what we're doing here, and it's full steam ahead until I hopefully get there one day. But
so
Yeah.
basically growth and education.
yeah,
We've got plans to continue to expand the food forest. At the moment,
and
it's
teach people how
25
to do it.
acres, but yeah, there's a lot of land where we can continue to spread out. Yeah, and the whole aim is to be more self-sufficient. So goats, sheep, cows, all of those will
Enough
be
fruit where we can, if there's so much fruit, we can send it to Newcastle and feed it all the homeless people and stuff like that. That's what I envision as well, is having that abundant amount of fruit where
Hmm.
it's not particularly sale in fruit itself, it's more us trying to feed everyone and ourselves
Right.
and our kids, and eventually we'll open a little cafe down the front and have a little homesteading cafe, which would
Yeah,
be
nice.
cool. But yeah.
It's interesting
Definitely.
too. I mean, I have this vision as you're talking about having like a village or families gathered around or close to a food forest, and I can
Yeah.
almost see in my mind's eye, people going to the grocery store in the food forest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Picking their own thing and kind of do a little weighing, and then pay a
Yep.
little something, at least to sustain the food forest. That'll be quite interesting. I can kind of see that actually, and it's really fascinating too. That sometimes we think modernity has pushed us to the limit where we realize that we maybe going backwards and kind of doing things a little bit more natural makes more sense.
Yeah.
But I see I see the reason why we also go into buildings of huge grocery stores because we are lazy. We don't want to go into the forest and go pick our own our own
Yeah.
fresh living fruits and veggies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Once your body starts feeding fresh fruit and
Mm.
vegetables, like James said, your mind becomes a lot clearer. It's amazing, stuff out of the boxes and cereals and sugars and how much fuzziness you can get out of it. But
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. Once you start feeding your body, you crave it.
It's really true, we were talking about on the last podcast, just how when we clear the food, unnecessary, horrible, unhealthy foods out of our lives,
Processed.
processed stuff. All of a
Yep.
sudden, there's a sense, you feel your body different, and when you introduce some other processed food in there, you can tell immediately, whoa, there's something going on in my body here.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous because I know you guys must have this amazing experience all the time, just a sense of clarity in your body and your mind, like I'll come hang out in your place just so I can go to the food forest and just have great food to eat. It'd be so awesome.
Like some days you're just walking through, especially coming into spring when the mulberries and all the other fruits are
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be just
It's a relaxing
picking
experience.
food off. It's amazing.
It's when you're with
Wow.
nature. It's like you're just being in the food forest is a connection. It's like being around the bees when we had them. The frequency from that really, really vibrates your soul. As I say, it just you feel it.
Healing.
It's healing, and it's the same being around the food forest. Is you're surrounded by all these trees, and it's almost like they're looking at you. They're talking to you. They want to be. It's very, very
Totally.
intimate when you're looking around at these trees, because you planted every single one of them, and here they are, surviving through the harshest of weather. They don't have any houses to protect them.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
That's
So
awesome.
we are getting close to the very end of this, and so
You
I
mean I
wanted to
can't continue asking more questions? And
maybe in the after show.
I can literally talk all day.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm taken by what you guys are doing. It's so exciting. my mind is just going, I've got to go to Australia. I've got to go
Yeah,
see you
yeah.
guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're welcome here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So I want to ask a couple questions at the very end. So first, what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to start their own permaculture?
Your best advice would be have a look online and have a look at, if you've got a small area, have a look at some of the small vertical gardens and all the different systems they have. And if, you know, and even if you have a bit of land, the swales, smaller versions, but also, yeah, educating yourself, and don't be discouraged, because sometimes it is very, very hard and you go, how am I going to do this? This is blood, sweat and tears, or you're digging with a shovel or something like that, because it's one of those things that do take a lot of time, or your trees might get a bit sick. And it's all about learning and experiencing the whole entire process of building and understanding the soil to the trees to what they want, and you know how everything works together. And once you get there, it's very, very pleasing. So put your head down and get through it.
My advice would be, don't want everything at the same time, because for us, we bought so many trees, put everything in, but because we went on, unless you're going to be on a smaller scale, if you want to be on a small scale, go for it, punch in as much as you can. But on a large scale like this, with 4 people running it, our biggest issue is we went in and started putting the trees in and the layers and everything else, and we don't have the manpower or whatever to be able to handle 19 swales all for ourselves. And so we wanted everything in there at the same time, and it's like, I want all the trees possible. And you can't look after
we
all the
did a
trees
very
possible.
big overboard. We were very, very big, and that's
Too
why
fast, too big.
and when it's only 4 people working on it, it gets very, very hard. But we had 1 employee for a while, but you know, it's one of those things. It's easy when it's family, because it's just times just don't don't work when you have.
Assess your capabilities,
right,
and assess how much you can put into it. So if you can put a huge amount of time in, then go as much as you can. But if you can't manage, you know, the larger scale back and do it on a small scale. If we did 7 swales instead of 19, those 7 swales wouldn't have as many trees, obviously, but they would have a different ecosystem running in them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing is we did 19 swales, so it really did improve it. I mean, as soon as you go down the hill, it goes from freezing, and then you step into a swale in the right end, and it's just it blows your mind. Humidity that builds up into these areas, and actually
microclimates are created inside the food forest.
Wow, that's crazy. That's really cool. The next question I have is, what are you working on at the moment?
Right now it's
12 projects.
I always say there's like 12 projects at one time, but there is a lot. Right now we're even thinking of getting a hemp license, so we can start on doing processing an area. We're looking at trying to improve the ground using hemp for a cycle. So we're going to use the hemp for hempcrete, so we can build a house in the future. But that's one of our projects we're looking at. And then once we do that, it's going to turn into the nut grove and other swales I want to put in. So that it's still expanding. It's
so
like there's
more
just
gardens going in.
there's more gardens
There's
going in.
a high tunnel that's got to go in. There's a little mini food forest up at the house that we're working. There's a pig pen area that we're working on.
Dragon fruit area.
Oh my gosh, there's just, you have
Dragon
no
fruit,
idea.
that's nice.
It's not one. Any homesteader will know there's always 12 projects running at the same time.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy, but it's, you know, it's to the point where it's actually enjoyable, and I find it fun. As hard as it may be, it's one of those things. It's like each day, you know, it's working to something better.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Very last question is, where can people find you?
Vast Harvest Permaculture. We are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're not as best at uploading, but we sometimes we might disappear for a week or two, but that's only because we're like heads down into projects, and that's like 2 weeks have passed. Oh my gosh, you need to get. But
I try
we're
and keep up the
yeah.
posts generally, and it's usually, anything from preserving to bringing in food from, farm to table type of
But
videos.
I am looking at introducing a new type of series into it where I can actually bring the cameras around with me in a day and cut them up and show people, because people are really interested and want to know how they can do this step by step on this. And if they can follow me along and understand, it's not as easy as it may think sometimes. But I mean, we're doing it on a large scale, but it'd be lovely for people to be able to use us as an example and to learn from that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I definitely
So-
want to watch that for sure. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show today. It's been a
So
pleasure.
awesome.
Learned so much.
Absolutely.
Learned so much
Yes.
actually. So
He's got a lot of knowledge in his head.
Yeah, I could
Yes,
talk
I'm,
for
I'm,
Yeah, he
I'm right there. I might knock on your door one day, and you're gonna.
Go
Sounds
for it.
good.
My husband invites complete strangers here all the time.
Oh, really? Oh, good. That's great, because I want to go into that food forest. I'm so there. I'm telling you right now, this is so awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, welcome
absolutely.
anytime.
You're welcome anytime you're heading over to Australia.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have you guys come on a little bit later too, when you've expanded a little bit more, see how the nut grove is going.
Yeah.
So that I think it'd be awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
us.
Bye.
Nice chat.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Green Carpet Interviews. We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
This show was brought to you by Veg on the Edge, our vegan restaurant in Santa Cruz and San Luis Obispo. If you're in the area, be sure to stop by and check out our delicious plant-based dishes. Check out vegontheedge.com for more information.
To stay connected with us and learn more about conscious living, follow us on Instagram at Green Carpet Interviews. We love hearing from our listeners and would love to hear your thoughts and feedback.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Green Carpet Interviews.